Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Welcome aboard. Bridge MCP is in the house. Welcome aboard. E2247, who says, hello, relatives. Today's visit will be the greatest visit ever. As usual, he says. And of course, we have the star in the house today. Who is our star today? Yvette Avery Herod, who I hope to interview over this weekend because, you know, she is going strong, leading parts of that strike, that preparation for a strike against UPS if they don't do what's right. UPS has made billions of dollars on the backs of these workers over the pandemic. They asked these workers to come into work while the executives were home, while the executives were in isolation, while the executives were quarantined. Our packages were still delivered. While home delivery became a brand new thing that everybody was just doing home delivery. Not brand new, but you know what I mean. And we depended on those UPS workers. I always said something. You put a farmer and an executive on a barren land. And who do you think survives? The farmer does, the one who actually gets the work done. So, folks, we must be there. We must be supporting our. We have got to support our strikers. If they strike, they are supposed to meet, as I understand, early next week to try to avert this strike. But I'm telling you, we have to have strong solidarity with those who would like to. Once again, screw with our people, the workers. We won't allow that. We won't allow that. Let's see if I can get that on the screen for you, Senor Rudnin. Let me know, first of all, folks, that I don't get an echo. Since it's a new system here that I'm testing out, I want to make sure I don't get echoes or anything of that sort. So let's make sure and get it all running correctly. So there you go. There you go. I don't think audio good. Great. And you can see the screen. Excellent. 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 Anyway, folks, as it turns out, no echo. Excelente mundo. No echo. And I can adjust the camera so that I am not completely blocked by the video. So welcome aboard our star again. And that is Yvette Avery Herod. Welcome aboard Eric Hayes. We have a lot of stuff to do, a lot of videos to show today. And one of them fairly long. So I'm going to go ahead and get busy. But before that, I see that Michael has something. Axios National Weather Service warns over 20% of the U.S. population, 80 million people, are expected to face an air temperature or heat index above 105 degrees Fahrenheit this weekend as a record-breaking heat wave persists over most of the South. Extreme heat events are the top annual weather-related killer. Heat index is what the temperature feels like to the human body when the relative humidity is combined with the air temperature, and indices of 103 or above can lead to dangerous heat disorders, which increase the risks of related hospitalizations and deaths. Oops, yep, that's where we are, folks. Eric Hayes says, Egberto, I needed you as an interpreter today. Well, you know I'm always here to interpret for you when you need me, my friend. You should have put a three-way call on or something, and I'd have taken good care of you, my friend. Anyhow, let's go ahead and get the first video going. This is about Moral Monday, which Moral Monday is when again? On the upcoming Monday. Here we go, and we'll then take it on the other side. Let me get all my P's and Q's clicked. There we go. Ahora mismo. Welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being here with us today. Today we are honored to have Samantha Turner. She's a campaign manager for the Poor People's Campaign, among many other illustrious organizations she chairs. or serves under. And the illustrious Reverend Dr. Rodney Sadler is an associate professor of Bible and the director of the Center for Social Justice and Reconciliation at Union Presbyterian Seminary, among his myriad of other things. Thank you so kindly, guys, for being out here on Politics Done Right to give us this information about this event that we have every year and throughout the year. So anyhow, welcome aboard, Dr. Sadler. Tell us a little bit about exactly what this Moral Monday event is going to be about.
Well, I'd love to tell you a little bit about it, but because Samantha is busy, I want to get her to say as much as she can while she's transitioning here. The Moral Monday event in Charlotte this upcoming Monday is an opportunity to bring the Moral Monday message back home to the Charlotte community. And Sam, would you like to say something about it?
Sure. So I can tell you the history of it. Reverend Sadler actually can tell you the history of it better, but it started with the NAACP here in North Carolina when Reverend William Bishop Barber was the president of the NAACP. He started the Moral Monday event to protest legislation that was starting and hurting people and taking away their health care. And he actually the force that it became, Moral Mondays became on the legislature actually changed the vote, and the healthcare was not slashed. So Moral Monday has a long history. The last one in Charlotte was, and you can find that out at the poorpeoplescampaign.org. Please go there. There's some great information. There's a whole bunch on Moral Monday and the history and pictures. It's wonderful. I just don't want to miss my exit. I'm sorry. So it's going to be wonderful. This event, we're going to have speakers from the clergy from, I think, 5 or 6 different denominations of Christianity, Judaism, Muslim faiths, and we will have theomusicology. We will have impacted speakers. I don't usually speak. I'm not the speaker, so we give impacted speakers the microphone so we can hear from them how the policies in this country and in the state impact them, and that's how we have to push the legislature. So Moral Mondays are not. They are not partisan. They're never partisan, but they are highly political.
Well, look, let me tell you, first of all, Samantha, we like everybody to be able to get out there and speak. You know, I mean, especially those who are working so hard in the background as you are. So, first of all, thank you very much. Let's go back to Dr. Sadler, Reverend Dr. Sadler.
Yes.
The Moral Monday started, yes, with healthcare, but it really, under the Poor People's Campaign, it really morphed into a hell of a lot more. And sorry for the wordology, slipped. Again, it morphed into a whole lot more. And I think it is something that America needs to understand the reasoning behind why it had to morph.
Good. So actually, the Moral Monday movement began in 2013, August 29th, when William Barber and 16 of his good friends walked into the General Assembly building of North Carolina and said that we will not take what's going on. We will not take the legislation that's been poured out on the state from the American Legislative Exchange Council. At that point in time was the first time in more than 100 years that the General Assembly and governorship of the state of North Carolina had gone to the Republican Party. And this time, it wasn't just Republicans that were governing us. It was a group of extremists that were hell-bent on trying to do things to turn back the tide, to remove the advances that had come about in the state of North Carolina in things like healthcare, and things like education, and things like voting rights. And in essence, they were trying to do a systematic turning back the clock to the 1940s, the 1950s, if I can. They'd done things like they were trying to pass a a scheme to put vouchers in the hands of people of North Carolina and undermine the public education system. They were trying to make sure that the Affordable Care Act that had just come through the Obama administration, that it failed in the state of North Carolina. They wanted to deny the right of North Carolinians to have access to health care. And the easiest way for them to do that was to deny Medicaid expansion. They're trying to work against the rights of workers and trying to turn back the tide on the ability to unionize in the state of North Carolina. They were working against access to voting rights. And literally, one of the most frustrating things was that we had made such significant advances in the state of North Carolina, in part led by the work of the North Carolina NAACP, that they had were trying to turn back early voting. They were trying to put in place voter ID laws. They were trying to gerrymander the state. In the aftermath, this is in the middle of our first Moral Monday campaign in 2013. In the aftermath of the decision that came out of the Supreme Court, Shelby versus Holder, they literally the day after in the state of North Carolina put in place a monster voter disenfranchisement act that would literally work with, as this Fourth Circuit Court said, surgical precision against the rights of African American voters. They put in place this monster voter disenfranchisement bill that really did try to turn back the tide. So Moral Monday became an effort to stand against this. It was an effort to say, we need to push back against our legislature. We need to make sure that we remind them that they have a constitutional responsibility to care for all of the rights of all of the citizens of the state, and they couldn't pick and choose, and they could not take away the rights of those who are most vulnerable and most at risk. So Moral Monday was originally an opportunity to make all of these issues come to the forefront. What I love about Dr. Barber is that he said this is a fusion moral movement. So we're not just fighting for healthcare. We're not just fighting for voting rights. We're not just fighting for education. We're fighting for all of it, because we don't just want a state where we've got good education and poor healthcare, or good healthcare and poor voting rights, or good voting rights and poor abilities of people from outside of the nation to immigrate within to it. We need victories in all of these areas. And in order to be successful, we need to work together. We need to come together, and we need to be a moral voice that bears witness together. So I think that's what the Moral Monday movement was at its inception, and what it still continues to be in the state of North Carolina and around the country.
And as I understand it now, Samantha, this is while this is coming back to Charlotte, North Carolina, right? Is it Charlotte?
Yes.
Coming back to Charlotte, North Carolina. This movement now is countrywide. How can they find out about Monday, what's going on, and all the resources that they can get to work with you on Monday?
Right now, the event is listed on the North Carolina Poor People's Campaign page website. It is PPC. PPC
I'll find it and post it.
-nc.org. ppc-nc.org. The event invitation is there. And otherwise, please go to the poorpeoplescampaign.org, sign up in your state. You will get emails from circles or groups in your area, and they will reach out to you.
Let me ask one other question. Is this going to be streamed as well for people who want to see it in real time?
Yes, it will. It will be streamed on that page. It's going to be streamed on our social media. So on Facebook and Twitter, and I believe Instagram. Mm-hmm. From the North Carolina Poor People's Campaign. Yes.
Now, let me say one thing that have always concerned me, in that I don't think this movement has gotten the amount of attention from our quote unquote mainstream media as some hate groups have gotten whenever they do something. You guys are actually doing something that is good throughout the country and not gotten the recognition you will. Not recognition, that's what we're talking about. Gotten the coverage that you deserve over on the mainstream media. Are you doing anything to mitigate that, other than, well, here you have independent media here will definitely be covering it. But are we doing anything to sort of shame these guys into doing what's right?
I think a number of things were being done from the beginning. From the very beginning, William Barber worked with people like Eric Preston to have their own individual media that was independent of all that was going on. They worked with a number of other people who were documentarians, who were recording the materials that were going on to make sure that we always had our own ability to witness. But I mean, you're right. Literally from the first major Moral Monday events, we noticed that there weren't the kinds of media that should have been there to see the greatest movement in the South since the 1960s. There weren't the kinds of independent media that were there in other places. We were always able to bring out some people. We had some groups that were constantly there. There were some people that were there from Latino groups. There were people that were there from independent media groups, and even some groups, some from Spectrum News that were there from the beginning. But always there was a dearth of the kind of reporting that we'd like to see. In February of 2014, when we had the biggest movement in the state of North Carolina in the South since the 1960s with the HK on J, more than 100,000 people showed up. The media was barely present, was barely evident. And those that were there reported something like 50 to 60,000 people and did not record the actual number of people that were there. So I think there's always been the sense that the official media were trying to make sure that they downplayed what was actually going on. But the fact is that they could not do it. And because we had our own media sources, because we had our own people that were showing up and taking pictures and recording things, they could not keep a lid on what was going on. Even today, we need to make sure that we push this out there. That's why I'm so glad that Sam has gotten independent media sources, people that are coming out to make sure that the sounds of the people are being heard. We've got people like Brian Kasher, who have been there from the very beginning to make sure that people could hear what was going on, could see it streamed live on Facebook, could see it streamed live on other alternative media to make sure that the voices of the people would be heard.
Well, I'll be picking that up as well, Reverend. I tell you what, this is all to control the narrative. You see, the narrative of a fusion movement is dangerous because it is all people getting together. And when all people get together, it makes the plutocracy concerned, if you will. Anyhow, let's go ahead and close this down. We'll make sure and get all this information out. Give me a closer, Samantha.
Thank you so much for getting this out there. It is so important that we do get media to recognize what's happening. It is huge what is happening. We had an event last June in Washington, D.C. We took over Pennsylvania Avenue. We closed it down. We shut it down. We had over 200,000 people. It was an amazing event, and there was 2 minutes of coverage on the local news. Somebody doesn't want people to see this. Yes, thank you for getting it out.
You nailed it. But you nailed it, Samantha, but we're going to make sure people see it. Reverend?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Thank you.
I want to say, please take a look back at that event. Eric Preston and Andrea Preston and Fusion Films did a fine job of making sure that everything's documented. There were more than 250,000 people, I think, you had at that event in Washington last year. It was an amazing event. But this event, we hope, will be a great way of bringing it home. In essence, the reason we're doing a Moral Monday in Charlotte was because Dr. Barber, when we had our commemorative and reminder of Moral Monday a couple of months ago, reminded us that we need to take these messages back home. So this is an opportunity to come to Charlotte, North Carolina and say, the work of Moral Monday is still not done. The need to bear moral witness against the unjust legislation that's coming out of our General Assembly is not done. And we need to do this in Charlotte, North Carolina, in Wilmington, in Winston-Salem, in Asheville. We need to make sure that this message continues to resonate and that people continue to hear a moral voice. So that's what we're doing in Charlotte on the 24th of July. We're trying to make sure that we're amplifying this moral voice back home in Charlotte. And we hope that people will take this seriously wherever you are. So I was just at a Moral Monday in Tennessee a couple of months ago. I hope that in Texas, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in Los Angeles, California, that this moral message will continue to resonate and that people will continue to make sure that we hear the need for moral legislation coming from our General Assemblies. And let's take this message back to Washington, D.C. The way the Poor People's Campaign has been doing, let's make sure we amplify this moral message so that our legislators know that we cannot continue to rule in favor of the wealthy, the rich, the elites. We need to make sure that the people's voice is heard and that common people's voices and needs and interests are represented in our state capitals and in our capital in Washington, D.C.
Could not be said any better. Reverend Dr. Rodney Sandler and Samantha Turner, thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Good to be with you today, Berto. God bless you.
Thank you. All right, folks, and I tell you what, Peggy Lopez nailed it. I think what really pissed off the right wing about BLM was the amazing variety of people hitting the streets. Never thought of the group as a fusion of human beings before this talk. That's what it is. They're very scared of the fusion movement. All of us getting together. We're going to be touching on several issues like that. Next week, I have a hell of an interview that I did with a young woman who is on the right, really pushing for anti-abortion. I think you guys are going to like it. But for now, let's go ahead and talk to Lonnie Morris, and then we'll take it on the other side. Let's go ahead and go right there. Lonnie Morris. Welcome to Politics Done Right here at Netroots Nation 2023. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good, and thank you for having me.
Well, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, first of all, what brought you to Netroots Nation?
Well, a friend of mine who created a documentary called What These Walls Won't Hold that I'm prominently featured in had came out and screened his documentary out here last week. I couldn't make it with him. And so he said, hey, man, do you want to go next week to this conference? He knows my organization, No More Tears, and we do work around social justice reform.
We're going to talk about your organization.
Right. So he knew I'd do that work. He said, there's this great conference that's going on, and you might want to go to it and think it'd be beneficial.
Where are you out of?
I'm out of Oakland.
Oakland, California?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I came. So I'm here now. And
what was your first impression when you saw all that we have to offer here at Netroots?
Well, I mean, it seems like a really cool, like I said, this is my first time coming. I didn't even know what Netroots was, to be honest with you.
Right.
It seems like a pretty, exciting space. It seems like there's a lot of work being done around progressive politics. So I'm not sure what my full impression is, because I'm just learning.
You're just learning.
This is my first
day. First day.
Yeah, exactly.
The first few hours of the first day.
Exactly. And I didn't know about Netroots from anything else before he informed me about it.
Well, one of the things that I like to feature here on my program is activists that are out there doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too often they're not featured as they should.
Right.
What kind of work are you doing?
So my organization is called No More Tears, and we were started 21 years ago in San Quentin State Prison. And we work around violence intervention, prevention, and we do restorative practices.
What is healing circles?
So restorative practice healing circles are where we get with survivors of violent crime and perpetrators of violent crime, and we work together to reconcile their differences in terms of those who have created harm and those who have experienced harm. Mm-hmm. And we say all of us have experienced harm on some level or another, and all of us have done harm on some level or another. So if we can come together in a space where we're equal in terms of our experiences, and we can share those experiences, then we can find healing.
Function. I hear the aura around it. How do you actually bring people into the fold, get a clientele?
Right. So we work primarily inside San Quentin State Prison. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah,
that's
one of the major prisons.
Yeah, so it's one of the major prisons in the United States of America. So we work there primarily. We go in twice a week. On Saturdays, we do workshops, right? And those workshops are around, like I said, responses to violence and change your mindset, because we understand that the first thing we have to do is get people to think about what is violence and how does violence play out in our lives, and why many people in prison were violent prior to coming to prison. Some of us, while
so you want to know the genesis of the problem, unlike too many people.
Well, we know the genesis. We know the genesis.
No, what I'm saying is, you attack the core of the problem,
Exactly.
as opposed to people who just say you do something bad, we lock you up.
Exactly,
You
yeah.
find out first why are you likely to do something bad.
Yeah, well, the people that we're dealing with have already done something bad,
Right.
Because they're in prison. So, or they've been accused of doing something bad. Some people in there are innocent, but
Right.
most of us have done something. I'm formerly incarcerated myself,
Right.
So I'm speaking from experience, right?
Right.
So most of us have done something to get ourselves in prison. Now there were a lot of conditions that led to what we did and led us to prison and so on and
Right.
so on, right? But I'm just saying in general. So we already know that people that sitting in the prison have done
Right.
things that were contrary to what the social norm was.
Right.
So what we try to do is get those people to think about why they did what they did,
Right.
right? What was the causative factors to their behavior? And then how do we change that?
Right.
How do we change your mindset so
Right.
you can go back into society and function in a way that keeps you free of society and free
Right.
of harming other people?
Right. And now you said you operate in how are you funded? Is it state funded or are you?
So we're a volunteer organization basically,
Right.
and we get grants here and there. And it's
Right.
not a state-funded organization, but mostly volunteers, and we get grants, small grants here
Right.
and there. So we operate like that, and our volunteers.
Now, have you seen successes?
Certainly. So in our numbers that we've been able to accumulate is that 85 to 90% of the people who go through our program and get released from prison do not return to prison.
So the recidivism rate
is very, very low. And of those who have returned, none of them have returned for violent crimes. Only a small percentage of them.
Petty.
Yeah, violation. They might have had a drug problem and they
Right.
returned to using drugs,
Right.
or they absconded from their
Right.
parole officer or something like that there. But none of them
Right.
have returned for violent crimes.
Well, I would call that a big success.
Certainly, we believe we're a very successful program, and the way we approach it is we meet people where they're at.
Right.
We don't try to preach to people or talk down to them. We say that, man, we can't change you. You
Right.
fundamentally have to change yourself, and that we can provide you with tools and a place and
how
a
to do
space
it, yeah.
where you can feel safe enough to make those changes.
And I think one of the things that you probably add to these folks that many of them are missing is you respect them, you respect
Exactly.
the person.
Right.
And in starting by respect and them respecting you,
Right.
many a times they want to honor
Right.
those who showed them respect, and in doing so, improve on their own lives.
Exactly. And the other part of it is that we have the lived experience. All of us, for the most part, that founded the organization were incarcerated.
Well, you know what? Let me stop you right
Yeah.
there because you bring something up. You are one of the founders, I guess, of this.
I am the
organization.
founder.
You are the founder
Yes.
of the organization. So I can ask you this directly. What allowed you to change your being into somebody who understood the concept of why I did what I did, or many, I don't know what you do. I don't need to know what you did. But why many of us who've done this do it? What made you different from the others to go out there and say, you know what? I'm going to take control of this and do it myself. I am actually going to start fomenting change.
That's a good question. So there's a number of things. One, I got stabbed and almost was killed in prison. That started it, kind of, so to speak, because I was living in what we call the thug life or the criminal lifestyle, even in prison, right?
Right.
When I got stabbed, they put me in what's called a hole, which is isolation and segregation. And when I was in there, I just started kind of thinking about my life, because the doctor told me, hey man, if this knife would have went an inch deeper, because he stabbed me right over my heart, if it went an inch deeper, we wouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying? So you better think whatever God you believe in for your life, right? And that made me think, man, if I'd have died, as a result of this, not just it's over, but what legacy would I have left?
Right.
Who would I have been? Could anybody at my funeral have said anything good about me and not be lying? Right. So it made me start thinking about that. And I said, man, I don't want to live my life like that. I don't want to be a person that doesn't contribute anything to life. And when I leave, people got to make up lies about who I was, right? To try to make me look like a good guy. And so I didn't really change them, but that started the process. And then over time, just as I met more people, I got involved in college. I got me a Bachelor of Arts degree in prison. And once I did that just really opened up my whole mindset to the possibilities of what I could be and could do with my life, right? And then once I realized that, I wanted to share that with other people, right? So I started saying, man, how can I connect with people in the community that's out there experiencing the violence, particularly in Oakland in the late 90s and early 2000s. Oakland was like the murder capital of the world, right? I mean, per capita, more people was getting killed than anywhere else, right? and mostly all young black men, right?
Right.
And so I thought that, man, maybe I can connect with them some kind of way, because a lot of these young black men were coming into prison. So I couldn't get out of prison because I had a life sentence at that time.
You had a life sentence?
Yes, I had a life sentence, right. And so I couldn't get out of prison. So when the guys were coming in, I said, well, maybe I can start working with these guys in here to do something. So I got together with a group of people and said, hey, man, I want to start an organization, and we want to do something to affect change in terms of the way people perpetrate and think about violence, right? And the way their mindsets, the way they think about their lives and what they're doing with their lives. And so we started working together with a collective of about 7 or 8 of us. A couple of people, my co-founder, Mick Gardner, who was instrumental. He's now our executive director. He was instrumental because he was not in prison, but he would come in every week and meet with us so we could formulate this organization. So him, Bobby Evans, a lot of guys, I don't want to try to name because I missed somebody's name. But a lot of people came together and we started working on this, developed a curriculum, started doing workshops in 2004, and we've been doing the workshops ever since.
Lonnie, this all tells me that there is something in you already that causes change. And I guess what I'm trying to reach, right, is first of all, what made you do whatever it is that you did?
Right.
And secondly,
we talking about the crime?
Yes.
Okay.
And also, what within you? I understand when you said you wanted to leave a legacy.
Right.
But for you to want to leave a legacy means that you had this inner thing inside of you that said, I am somebody. Right. Something else. I don't know what it is.
No. So, and that's a good question too. So, yeah, definitely. So, I came up in the 50s and 60s.
Right.
So, in an era where Black Power, you know what I'm saying, was at its height, particularly in the 60s, right? So, I came up under that kind of tutelage, right?
Right.
And so, I understood that I had value, that as a black man, that I had worth and I had value, right? Where I got distracted at was when you come up against this racist system, and it's not fair, then you start thinking, at least I did, and a number of other young black men that was coming up like me, we started thinking, this thing ain't fair, so they ain't playing fair, so why should I? See what I'm saying?
That's what I wanted.
Right, yes. So we started thinking like that. Why should I play fair? They ain't playing fair. So guess what? I'm not gonna play by your rules. You know what I'm saying? You say you can't do this, you can't commit crime, you can't harm people. Yeah, I can. You know what I'm saying? You harming me, committing crimes against me. So that was the thinking or the justification for the behavior, even though the behavior was wrong.
Right.
Let me get that out there. But that was the thinking and the justification.
I get that. I'm glad that you said that because you open up another thing for me. And the other thing now is then, I get that.
Right.
As far as, well, you're not going to play the rules. How comes, though, that a lot of, it's a silly question, but I want the audience to hear it, that a lot of this crime that is created is among the same group, because the big thing about it is like black and black crime, is something really strange. When many don't realize that black and black crime is just almost the same as white on white crime. But I mean, given that it was something that you say against the system, how comes it was mostly black and black crime?
So now that's really cool, because I think that when you look at the conditions under which we come up, right, and the nature of the reality of any human being, whether black, white, brown, or yellow, most of the times we lash out at the things that's closest to us. Yes, because it's difficult to get to the things at a distance. So the system, right? I can't get to the system per se, but dude on the street corner, I can get to him. And so there's been a dearth of what we call respect, right? And then there's been this false illusion of what respect really is.
Exactly.
So all that lends itself to me saying, I gotta establish myself again as somebody in this world. And to do that, I'm willing to step on you. And the person I'm gonna step on first is usually the person that's closest to me. Because they're in proximity to me. So it's easier to step on you than it is to step on somebody that's 10 miles away or 100 miles away or across the country, whatever, right? So I think a lot of what we see is the black on black crime is related directly to this being put in the proximity and put in these environments, depressed environments, oppressive environments, where anger, fear, disillusion, all these other things are bred into those environments.
I'm glad you gave context to that, because that would be the same rationale that explains white on white crime or Asian on Asian crime, et cetera, et cetera. And I think unless that it's expanded on, as you said,
what we get is we get a false notion that somehow when people see black kids shooting at each other, they don't get the gist of it. That well, you know, for the white kids who shoot up against each other, it's the same thing. Or for the Asian kids, it's the environment. Now, if they say, well, on a percentage basis, there is more crime in the black community, percentage basis, you also have to put out and say exactly what you pointed out earlier on. Given that you're in a society where where there's deprived, and those that are deprived move on to do these things. It happens the same in Appalachia, where it's a white community. It happened the same in the barrios, Latino community. It happens the same in the black community.
Well, I'll say generally, but I do think there's another added element to it. Because
I want to hear that.
Well, the element of slavery. I mean, because the legacy of slavery, we have a tendency to kind of overlook that as, kind of just make it like a byproduct of something. But the legacy of slavery among black folks is alive and well, right? So we were taught self-hatred, right? During the slavery era, then even post-slavery era, right? We were still, that self-hatred was perpetuated. So the identifier of self-hatred is in our genetic makeup, right? So that lends itself to where it's whites, Asians, they were not taught this kind of self-hatred to the degree that we were taught it. So, so I think that plays another role in.
And it's good to expand on that, Lonnie. I think it's important, in fact, to expand on what you just said, that there is inherently maybe more violence in that community. And what you just pointed out, there a lot of it is socioeconomic, but do not leave the component of slavery.
So the emotional and psychological impact of slavery has wreak havoc on our community.
You know, I think you're making me rethink a few things in the way you said that. I think that component it's likely a component that I hadn't added. You know, I know about it, but I don't think I've added that into what I'm doing. So I think that is a very, very necessary.
Well, think about this. The N-word, right? So in the 60s, and I tell young people this all the time, that was an anathema. You couldn't use the N-word around black folks. You like your brother was just talking earlier about being woke. That was woke. We didn't have the terminology then, but that was woke then, man. Using the N-word, that was, oh man, no, you get kicked out the car. You couldn't even be around black folks using that, right? Especially in public spaces, right? Now behind closed doors, people do what they do. But in public spaces, like it's now, on the radio airways, where it's everywhere, all the time, in the movies, everything. That was unheard of, right? But again, it's permitted, going back to the legacy of slavery, right? It's permitted by the powers that be, whether it's radio, television, that word can be used by anybody, anytime, for the most, particularly if you're black, right? And nothing gets said or done, about it. But there are certain words, if you use some against, and I'm not being biased or racist or nothing, I'm just being honest, use a negative word against a gay person or use a negative word against a Jewish person, you're going to get called to task for it. You're going to have a problem, right? But again, so that's the legacy of slavery, that this ideal that psychologically we continue to perpetuate negative reinforcement of us as a people. And we've now even gone to the degree where we say, oh, will you show it with love? We don't use it with the N-I-G-G-E-R. We use the N-I-G-G-A. Come on, man, knock it off. Don't make no sense at all, bro. The same word, the root of the word is the same. And I tell young black folks all the time, because they try to tell me, I said, look, man, let me tell you something. White folks in the South didn't know how to, and I want to use the word, but I won't, didn't know how to say the N-I-G-G-E-R. Because they were Southern people.
And that's why it was N-I-G-G-A.
Thank you. They started that. That's what
Interestingly, I'm glad you said that, because about using that word. I think I wrote a blog on this where I said, if I'm a rapper, and I'm a rapper using that word, and most of my music is bought by non-black folks, how do I ask somebody to spend some money on my music who can't sing it?
No, that's the thing. You're right. That's a good point too. But the thing is, they can't sing it because everybody's using it now because it's been made acceptable. And it's crazy because I've talked to some people in the industry, the music industry, and in the the radio and film industry, and they say, well, man, we're just catering to what you guys want, right? So we don't want to be censoring people and so on, freedom of speech, blah, 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 blah. But again, on the flip side, there's other words you can't say, and you're not going to cater to that. They say certain other words, you're done. Your little baby, the baby is a prime example.
What's the word that
you're canceled? Yes, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So it goes back to this lack of respect for black folks, right? And this assumption that we're in some way inferior, so we're not going to rise to the level of demanding that you refuse to use those words on the airways, or allow people to use those words on the airways.
Well, I don't. Please don't take this as condescending at all. But what I think you prove, what you articulate, shows without a doubt many a times the wasted lives that we have here in our prison system, for what the justice system and the criminal justice system has done to our people. Because the fact that you, a person coming out of prison, can actually understand the deep concepts of what's going on socially and what have occurred previously in this country, speaks a lot to me that we likely have a hell of a lot of wasted talent.
Oh, ain't no question.
Sitting back
ain't no question.
in these areas. So give me a closer of this segment.
What I would say, man, is that I think that conferences like this are good. And I was telling a young lady just earlier that the politics, this brother was kind of mentioning the brother that was gone before, the politics of this country doesn't really lend itself to real systemic social change, right? Because you got the two-party system. That's a problem. You got black folks basically catering to the Democrats. That's a problem because the Democrats can kind of take your vote for granted because they know, you're not going to vote for a Republican. I just voted for the first time in an election, man, because I never voted in my life. Didn't believe in voting. Went to prison, got out, and decided, because in California, they restored the right to vote once you're out of prison. Right? You can't do it in prison yet. They're working on that. But, so I said, well, you know what, I'm going to try to vote there. When I was going down my ballot, bro, it was so crazy because I couldn't vote for the Republican because it's just, it's where they at, man, it's way out, right? But I distastefully voted for the Democrat. Right. Because I'm looking at I knew some of these people on the ballot. So I was like, oh man, this dude, whatever, right? But I still checked the box. Right. And after I did it and took my ballot in, I felt kind of like ashamed, bro. Because I was like, why did I do that?
Can I make a corollary to that? I tell people, you did the right thing in that you chose the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, I don't like that term, but go ahead.
I know you don't like it. I don't like it either. I'm using that. I'm just speaking practically now. But I tell you one thing, that reinforces what we must do in primaries. Right. Well, so that when I say that, what I mean is, we have to make sure that those who are going to apply on that, are going to appear on that final ballot, are acceptable. Right. Acceptable. When I say acceptable, the candidates we really, really want. In other words, as an example, the progressive, you go to a lot of Democratic primaries right now, there may be somebody that's progressive that believes in social justice. And then there's another establishment candidate. And they always tell you, we got to vote for the establishment candidate because that's the person that can win. That's not a known factor or no. What we have to do is vote for that progressive person that believes in the values we talk about, in my humble opinion. And then that way, when you go to vote the next time and you have a Republican that you know is not serving you, the next person is going to be a candidate that will serve you. Right.
Well, philosophically that sounds great. What I think is, in this kind of closing segment, is that we have to rethink how we do politics in this country, particularly those of us of color. People of color, we make up a large segment of the voting population, right? The white population is shrinking, the people of color population is growing, right, in this country. So I think that when we say progressive, whatever term we want to use for it, if you're running in the mainstream political arena, you're still going to be subjective to the games that they play. And they always got maneuvers. Even if you get in office as a progressive, we were just talking about OAC. hey, they starting to annihilate her in terms of shutting her down. They ain't giving her the platform that she had before. At first, she was all over everything.
Right.
Now she can't hardly get a platform at times, right? So there can always, the system is designed to control people.
Right.
So they can always control, quote, the progressive or whoever, unless we change the system.
And give me your change before as I close it.
So I think that changing the system means that we fundamentally start on the grassroots level and start putting people in power that's going to be beholden to us, and that we're going to, like the brother was saying earlier, that we're going to demand that we're not going to just put you in power and say, oh yeah, go do what we're supposed to. No. When you don't do what you're supposed to do, we're going to put you out of power.
I don't think we disagree at all.
No, I don't think we disagree. No, I don't think we disagree. No, I'm not saying we disagree. I'm just saying the next level of that is recognizing that I don't care what your title is, if you're not serving our interests, you're out of there.
Right.
Yeah, you're out of there. I don't care, progressive, whatever, the best person in the world, whoever, we love you to death and all that, you're out. See what I'm saying?
Lonnie Morris.
Hey, nice to meet you.
It's been my pleasure speaking to you.
You too, brother.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you, man.
Take care and keep up doing the good work.
Right on. Yeah.
We need activists out there doing the work, and we need activists come into these kind of organizations, not for themselves, but for what you can impart on others.
Right on. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
All right.
Hey, have a good one, man.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. You know, that was supposed to be a 5 to 7 minute interview. I was so enthralled in what Lonnie was saying. I couldn't get out of that interview. I just wanted to keep going and keep going because the guy is very enlightened, and I just enjoyed the talk and the camaraderie with El Senor Lonnie. Okay, the other one is with Michael Thome. Me and Michael Thome go back a long time. We've been going to Netroots all over the country, from Baltimore to New Orleans to San Jose to Arizona, Phoenix, to just about everywhere in the country. And I've never interviewed him. I interviewed his daughter this time and his son a couple of years ago, but this time I got to my friend Michael Thome. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. I'm honored to be with Michael Thome. Michael, you have been a long time activist coming to Netroots for how many years consecutively?
I don't know. Actually, we missed last year for non-related reasons.
But let me ask you a question first of all.
Sure.
Did you at least watch one stream of Netroots when you missed?
Yes,
well,
but
I am not going to give you the opportunity to say, after spending year after year coming here, I think we should hold the honor that you're still the Netroots connoisseur, the person who's here every year.
Okay, well, we try.
But tell me about, first of all, how did you get started with Netroots Nation?
Well, we were Daily Kos. We were involved in Daily Kos, so, originally it grew out of Daily Kos is a big progressive blog, and Marcos Moises started Daily Kos many years ago, and we got involved in progressive politics through that blog, and I guess a group of participants in the blog really were interested in getting together at some point. And
in those days, I think it was called Yearly Kos, right?
Yes, the first 2 years were called the conference was called Yearly Kos, but that was too limiting. There were too many people who were interested in participating in this kind of get together to be so narrow as to just call it Yearly Kos.
And then it turned into this.
turned into this, and Daily Kos is still around, and our involvement is certainly a lot bigger than Daily Kos nowadays, but that's okay. We still do Daily Kos stuff, and everyone else here from all over is certainly more than the blogosphere also. A lot more than the blogosphere.
In fact, it's amazing. It's what it has turned into, where everybody from every progressive segment of society is here at this conference.
Right, the whole Netroots, the highly technical, technological, online engagement, grassroots organizing,
and look, to show that organizing and activism is for everybody. What do you do for a living?
For a living, absolutely nothing related to politics. I'm a technology guy. I run a relatively small product for a big company, and we are online at some level, but you've never heard of our company, and well, you have, because we talked before.
Yeah.
But we work behind the scenes in customer support for electronics and banks and stuff.
But what is interesting is that, in as much as you're doing these non-political things, you see a reason to come to this every year because you want to be a part of the body politic.
Everything's political, whether you would.
I like that.
Well, it is. What isn't political? I mean, everything going on in politics affects our daily lives in so many different ways that I think it's important. It's more than important. It's critical to be engaged. If you're not engaged at all, you have no idea who to vote for, who to talk to, how to talk to your representatives, how to sort of let people know, the lawmakers, if nothing else. You're a citizen. If you're a citizen, you have a responsibility to be engaged with your representatives and to participate.
This morning I did my show in Houston from the hotel room, live on air. And there is one of the guys in the control room. He has a peeve, and he constantly say, "We have to get out there and vote. It's whatever is happening out there is our fault. Get the hell out and vote." And in effect, as somebody like yourself who have so many other interests, you can see the importance of what we're doing here.
Absolutely, and voting is like the bare minimum. I think one of my takeaway messages from Netroots and sort of being involved at this level, at the ground level, is your representatives really want to hear from you.
Right.
Every time I talk to an elected representative, whether I voted for them or not, they are deeply interested, with certain exceptions, but they should be deeply interested in what you think about and what I think about what's going on, how they should do their business, how they should legislate, and where they should put their priorities. I think so many times representatives are stuck listening to the people that fund them and organizations that fund them, because they're the loudest.
Absolutely.
If I donate thousands of dollars to your campaign,
right,
I feel empowered to yell at you and say, I'm a big donor. I should be able to communicate with you and tell you what I think should happen.
Right.
If I just voted for you, I really should be just as important.
Right.
Everyone should have the vote. One person, one vote.
Yes.
But I think that gets lost. The money in the system overwhelms that so much. So those of us who don't donate thousands of dollars really need to be louder.
And it's that what we teach here. We have several breakouts that talk about I used to say that we try to empower people, but we can't empower folks because they're already empowered.
Yeah.
And as such, we just show them how to use the power that they already have.
Even if it's talking to, whether it's sending a letter or sending an email,
right,
or the best thing is personal contact.
Right.
Banging on their office door, even if they're not there.
Right.
there will be someone there, and they will take a note that one of their constituents showed up and cared enough to talk to them. And it's even better if you can, talk to someone in person.
Absolutely.
At a party or a social gathering or
wherever.
Something like this, if they're so enthusiastic to show up.
Well, I'm very happy that first of all, I'm happy to talk to you. I mean, we've been seeing each other.
I don't know how many years.
Year after year. And I think this may be the first time that you're sitting in a chair.
I think so.
I think I said, man, we got to, somebody that's been coming like this has to have their word out. Michael Thumb, it's a pleasure knowing you, and I thank you for the interview. It's
always great talking to you.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, one last video. We have just about the right time. We may go over by a minute, but these are two young people, and I always want to feature a few of the young folks as well. Let's check this one out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. As you know, what we try to feature here are activists, people that are participating in our domain. Here today, we are honored to have Nicole Edwards and
Bruce Fealk.
I tell you what, tell us a little bit about yourself, Nicole.
I am a journalist, I'm a podcast producer, and generally interested in social justice.
Can you mention your podcast at all?
One of the many podcasts that I work on is Intersectionality Matters with Kimberly Crenshaw.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And what is it all about?
It's about intersectionality, which is Dr. Crenshaw's theory about the way that systems affect people living at different identity intersections in America.
And my dear friend, it sounded that way. Tell me a little bit what you do.
So I'm a law student currently. I am an abolitionist. I, fight for liberation, and I write about different topics surrounding theories of justice.
Where do you write?
Different journals and things. I'm published in a few academic journals and whatnot.
Well, I tell you what brought you to Netroots?
So I'm actually working with the African American Policy Forum this summer, and we're just here helping out their installation.
Well, that is something I think maybe one would say. I don't know if you've been in Netroots. I've been with Netroots for about 15 years or so now, and I think it's great to see that we are expanding our horizons to kind of bring to people a lot of what they probably hadn't heard before. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. That's a big part of the reason that we're here today, to talk about book bans and anti-CRT legislation and the way that it's destabilizing our democracy. So it's really exciting to be here with like-minded people who are interested in learning more about that.
And what are you intent on doing to help people realize why book bans are a bad thing?
So it's important, one, to educate people on what's going on across the nation. It's in about 42 states where they're implementing legislation or trying to implement legislation that's banning books around what they call divisive concepts, including African American.
The truth is divisive, right?
No. It can be if you use it the right way.
No, I mean sarcastic.
I know, I get you. So things like African American studies, critical race theory, LGBTQ identity, gender affirmations, anything that's surrounding not white supremacy or what the majority would call normal is kind of trying to be banned out of public systems.
And my final question to both of you: What do you intend to do to ensure that we move past these book ban shenanigans, etc.?
Abolish the system.
Okay. What does that mean?
Abolishing the system means eradicating white supremacy within society, whether we start from the ground up or we can correct it as we go piecemeally. Just anything that is colonization.
I love that. Your thoughts?
I am a big advocate of having people just focus on us, focusing on our community, focusing on the beautiful literature, music, art that we produce, and engaging them that way. So my hope is to get folks reading the books that people say they shouldn't read today.
Well, you know what? With having young people in charge and taking the bull by the horns, I think we're in good hands. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Thank you for having us.
All right, folks, that has been Politics Done Right for this week. I want to thank everybody for being here. Remember that we replay at 3 o'clock on Saturdays and Sundays, the Monday and Tuesday programs in general. Sometimes, depending, we may put another one in there or whatever. Anyhow, please remember, share. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know exactly how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.